Welcome back to another edition of Fly Tying for Beginners. Today we're going to tie another of the top fishing flies, and this is going to be the Adams. We're going to tie two different types. First we're going to tie the traditional Adams, and the hook that I have in the vise is a Gamakatsu. This is a R10B size 14. This is a retainer bend. You can see these are barbless hooks, but you can see the bend there is a little different than what you normally would see. You can use just a standard dry fly hook. I'm going to use 8/0 70 denier black thread. We're going to give that hook a base of thread to halfway point. Whoop. And then we're going to come back half of that. Now for our wings we're going to use grizzly hackle tips, and you want to measure those hackle tips just the length of the hook shank, even a little bit smaller. Now you can see I trimmed the stems. We're going to tie these in pointing forward. I have the concave sides together. I'm going to tie them in with a little bit of the trim section still exposed up front. I'll hold them right on top. Give them that loose loop and pull them out, bring them up on top. Now when we lift the wing, we shouldn't have barbels sticking out to the front. Put a couple of wraps in front of them to get them to stand up. I'm going to remove the back section here. And now we have them split, and it makes it a little bit easier with those concave sides together to be able to do your figure 8. Looks like I have one barbel sticking forward. I'm going to tie this all in. And bring this to the rear. The Adams doesn't represent anything in particular in the mayfly species or any fly species, but it represents, it comes close enough to so many different styles that it makes it for a very good fly. The Adams, I would say, is probably the number one attractor pattern in the world. It's probably caught more trout than any other fly. Now for the tail, I have a brown hackle and a grizzly hackle. Put them together and line up the tips and pull them both off at the same time. And you'll have a nice mixed tail. We want that tail to be about the length of the hook shank. I'm going to go ahead and trim some of this off now. And secure that. Give it a wrap underneath. Now for the body, I'm going to use gray beaver. Have a nice tight noodle there. And we're going to wrap the body. Beaver, you know, lives in the water and their fur is naturally water repellent. That makes it great material for dry flies. Got a guard hair sticking out there. And we're going to stop just behind the wings. Now I have a natural grizzly and a dyed brown grizzly. You can use a regular brown hackle. I'm going to tie them in between the wings. I can see I need to trim them just a little bit right now. When we tie them in, we're going to leave a little bit of that trim section exposed. Carefully come right down and tie that tight in there. I'm going to hold up the wing and wrap the front. off that little bit of excess stem. And bring your thread back to 1 eye length from the eye of the hook. We're going to take our hackle, these are saddle hackles, and we're going to wrap the hackle. Put a wrap in back because you have 2, so that's 2 wraps, and put 2 wraps in front will be fine. Go ahead and tie them off. I like to pull them tight when I'm tying them off. Then I can pull everything to the rear and put a few wraps in front. Now we can remove the excess. Put a few wraps on the head. I have a couple of barbels sticking forward. I'm going to take my half hitch tool, push those barbels to the rear, and get them out of my way. There we go. Now I can take my whip finish. And finish that up. Pull that tight. Now we'll tie an Adams parachute. I have the same hook in the vise. I'm going to use the same thread. I'm going to put the thread back halfway and come forward once again. What could be better than the top attractor fly in a crippled wing? I'm going to use white bootlace for the wing post. I'm going to make this long so that I can grab onto it. Just bring that up front so I can grab onto it when I'm wrapping the hackle. I'm going to remove the excess. Now for the tail or shuck, I have a brown bootlace or rusty bootlace. I'm going to tie that in right there and bring that to the rear. You can use this to hold it at a 45 degrees so you can get close touching wraps. I'm going to take that and I'm going to make the shuck about the length of the hook shank. I'm going to cut that at a bit of an angle so I can have different lengths there. Now for the body, once again, I'm going to use the beaver. I really like this fly. It's a good attractor. Once the trout start seeing mayflies on a regular basis, you can use this when there's no hatch even, and it will produce for you. We're going to go ahead and wrap the body. Got a couple of guard hairs there I'll just take care of. The real long ones, you could leave most of the guard hairs in. Now I'm going to lift the wing post, put a few wraps in front of it, and I'm going to wrap the thread around the wing post just a couple of times. Now we take our brown and grizzly hackles, put a little bit of saliva on that wing post there to keep it under control. A little bit even on the shuck. I'm going to tie this in front. Wrap it up to the wing post. When we get to the wing post, we're going to wrap up the wing post. Just hold on to everything. The wing post and the hackle. You get nice tight wraps on there. And then come back to the bottom. Take just another small pinch of the beaver. And finish that body off. And you want to end the body at the wing post. Now this is pretty stiff, so I don't even have to hold the wing post. Just going to wrap the hackle. Just give it maybe 3 wraps because it's doubled. It would be 6 wraps of hackle. Go on top, go underneath. Go on top, go underneath. And remove the excess. Going to finish it off with a whip finish to the wing post. I'm going to use my fingers. And just put 1, 2, 3. Going to take some head cement, put it on the left side of the left side thread. Pull that in slowly. Let that thread soak into the wing post there. And pull that tight. We'll trim that off. Looks like I got a little bit, a couple strays there. Now you can trim your wing to the length that you want. You could go ahead and trim it to about the size that the wing should be. You can even take a little black marker and put bars on there if you'd like. I like to just leave it like this or cut it almost at a button size. Just take that and cut that down low. And here we have a pair of fantastic attractor flies, the Adams. Like I said, it's probably caught more trout than any other fly. Could be wrong, but that's how good this is. And an Adams with a shuck, parachute with a shuck. Hope that you learned something from this video. Hope you would subscribe to my channel. Please refer me to your friends. Leave comments, questions, suggestions, and most of all, thank you very much for watching my videos.